I have prepared for me what is a speech that I hope will set a marker for what we should be doing. You all know the words of a president matters.
Is the election rigged?
No. Unfortunately, here in America, there is a tradition of making it hard for people to vote. You know, even though people try to discourage you from voting, if you want to vote and you show up at your polling place, they can't stop you from voting. They can't stop you from voting. If
they can encourage us to appeal to our better angels, to our better nature, but they can also unleash the deepest, darkest forces in this nation. And that's what I believe Donald Trump has chosen to do.
If Donald Trump was next to Louis Farrakhan, I think it would be a big deal. This is a big fucking deal.
When he said after Charlottesville, there were, and I quote, very fine people on both sides.
That's a lie.
I said then it gave license and safe harbor to white supremacists and neo-Nazis and to the Ku Klux Klan.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But
these words not only stunned America, but they stunned the world.
And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
And in doing so, he assigned a moral equivalence.
Antifa!
Moral equivalence between those spewing hate and those with the courage to stand against it.
And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
I said at the time, we're in a battle for the soul of this nation. I said it again when I announced my candidacy, and I say it here today. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains. We are in a battle for the soul of this nation. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Presidential campaign. The first time he ran for president, he lied to voters, according to the New York Times, quoting aides of Biden's, about having marched in the civil rights movement. This is Biden making this false claim in 1987.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I did not march with a 12-point program. I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
And the New York Times reports, quote, more than once, advisors had gently reminded Mr. Biden of the problem with this formulation. He had not actually marched during the civil rights movement, and more than once, Mr. Biden assured them that he understood, kept telling the story anyway.
That's why, primarily, I'm running for president.
He ran for the Democratic presidential nomination in 1988, but withdrew after admitting he plagiarized a speech by then British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Charlottesville was no isolated incident. When Trump announced he was running for president, he called Mexicans rapists.
Can you defend it? There are criminal aliens in this country, Tim, who have come into this country illegally, who are perpetrating violence and taking American lives.
You want to use a big tar brush against Mexicans?
He also said, and many of them are good people. You keep leaving that out of your quote. And if you want me to go there, I'll go there.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
Days before the midterm, he fomented fears of a caravan heading to the United States, creating hysteria when he said, look what's marching up. This is an invasion. An invasion. An invasion. He asserted that immigrants would, quote, carve you up with a knife.
That's a lie.
So Bob Casey – doesn't mind MS-13 coming in. These are the slicers. They slice people up. MS-13 lives by the motto, kill, rape, and control. That's actually their motto.
An accused MS-13 gang member admits he took part in the killing of a Lynchburg teenager.
Posada Vasquez and other members used a knife to cut Wood's throat, cut off his right hand, and stab him in the chest and stomach 27 times.
They're not people. These are animals.
More recently, he called a major American city, a disgusting, rat-infected rodent mess. If I took you in blindfold and you took you to the LaGuardia Airport in New York, you must think I must be in some third world country. No, I'm not joking.
And some are not laughing, including the new mayor of New York.
As a proud New Yorker, I didn't like that comment, and I think it was not the right way to talk about it.
A disgusting, rat-infected rodent mess.
Disgusting rat and rodent infested mess.
The LaGuardia Airport in New York, some third world country. A disgusting, rat-infected rodent mess.
Describing it as a rat and rodent infested mess.
No human being, he said, would choose to live as though the vibrant, diverse community around Baltimore somehow was less than human.
On top of which, the vice president's claim is not precisely true.
Saying no human being would want to live there.
I left my community of Baltimore, a drug-infested area.
Well, I'll tell you, the mayor of Baltimore was mad as he walked through trash-filled streets in East Baltimore this evening.
Yeah, Kelly, he called parts of the neighborhood filthy as he walked by trash piles that neighbors said were there for a long time.
Some third world country.
Try to get Chalmers and them to come and get this.
Mayor Jack Young walking through the Elwood Park neighborhood of East Baltimore, visibly angry, calling the area filthy.
At a rally in Florida, when he asked the crowd, how do we stop these people, meaning immigrants? Someone yelled back, shoot them. And he smiled.
That's a lie.
I mean, when you have 15,000 people marching up and you have hundreds and hundreds of people and you have 2 or 3 border security people that are brave and great, and don't forget, we don't let them and we can't let them use weapons. We can't. Other countries do. We can't. I would never do that. But how do you stop these people? You can't. There's no... That's only in the panhandle you can get away with that statement. In North Carolina, he basked in the chants of send her back, echoing across the stadium. And she looks down with contempt on the hard-working Americans, saying that ignorance is pervasive in many parts of this country. And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds. He basked in the chants of send her back, echoing across the stadium.
Well, I would say that. I was not happy with it. I disagree with it.
How far is it from Trump saying this is an invasion to the shooter in El Paso declaring, quote, this attack is a response to a Hispanic invasion of Texas? If you look at Dayton, that was the person that supported, I guess you would say, Bernie Sanders, I understood. Antifa, I understood. Elizabeth Warren, I understood. Had nothing to do with President Trump. This president has fanned the flames of white supremacy in this nation. Bullshit. His low energy, vacant-eyed mouthing of the words written for him, condemning white supremacists this week, I don't believe fooled anyone.
Look at the hypocrisy. I look at what we're up against, you know. Joe Biden.
Joe Biden is a dummy.
Joe Biden, because he can't get through an answer in a debate without staring at his notes, without mumbling and stammering through it. I look forward to seeing him on the stage against Trump. It's going to be awesome. He didn't know the difference between a text message and an email, but that's just me.
If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330. and help me in this fight. Thank you very much. When the white nationalist Richard Spencer celebrated Trump's election by declaring, "Hail Trump," at an alt-right conference where the Nazi salute was being used.
Celebrating Donald Trump's victory, the rhetoric an unmistakable marriage of neo-Nazi hate and Donald Trump's campaign slogan. Today, in a meeting with the New York Times, Trump said, "Of course I disavow and condemn them." But
we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America.
In Charlottesville, David Duke, the former leader of the KKK, said, "This is why we voted for Donald Trump, because he said he's going to take back the country." So, folks, it's time to take back America, as was said. David Duke.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists.
David Duke.
I didn't even know he endorsed me. David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow, okay?
What are your views on the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacists?
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke.
David Duke.
David Duke. I've been doing it now for 2 weeks. You're probably about the 18th person that's asked me the question.
What do you see as the biggest problem with the Reform Party right now?
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem.
And on 8chan, and on 8chan, a haven for radicalism on the internet, where a declaration of hate linked to El Paso shooter was posted. One commentator wrote that Trump is helping normalize the most extreme radical sentiments because his perceived authority carries so much weight.
Common sense tells us this theory is so much partisan nonsense, but the numbers also prove it. 2014, there were 5,100 so-called hate crime perpetrators. 2016, there were 5,700. 2017, 6,300. Okay, so yes, there's a trend up. However, Donald Trump was not president 5 years ago, nor 3 years ago, when this trend of increasing hate crime arrests began. Truth is, there has not been a huge spike since President Trump was sworn in. He assumed office during this trend, which, by the way, could be more a result of increased diligent classification and reporting than actual increase in hate crimes. So no, there's no correlation between so-called hate crimes and the presidency and or the Twitter feed of Donald Trump. However, there is a correlation between the modern Democrat Party and its hatred of the 45th president and its effort to paint him as a racist for partisan political purposes. And that is really the lowest of the low.
I am your voice.
Because he said he's going to take back the country. So, folks, it's time to take back America, as was said.